This episode is brought to you by the Boneyard Huskies Club. The Boneyard Huskies Club empowers UConn student athletes while providing UConn fans with access to exclusive community, utility, and rewards. The Boneyard Huskies Club is excited to announce Locker Mania. If the UConn men's basketball team wins the NCAA Championship, fans who purchase a Boneyard Huskies Club men's basketball 2022-2023 season collectible will automatically receive full credit back for each purchase, and the athletes will still receive the full revenue from sales of their collectibles. For more information, go to boneyardhuskiesclub.com. That's Huskies with a YZ at the end. boneyardhuskiesclub.com.
All right. So with UConn heading to the NCAA tournament and playing Iona in the first round, I figured no one better to speak with than the guy who faced them most recently. So joining me today, we've got Coach John Dunne of Marist. So Coach, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So take me through. I know obviously you see Iona a couple times throughout the season. You see them, just last week in the conference championship. Give me the high level overview of this Iona team and what fans should be expecting out of this Patino coach team here.
Well, I think they should expect what Coach Patino's teams do year in and year out, and that's just play really hard, be relentless on the defensive end, with their full court pressure. He's got a ton of talent. I think when you just look at, his players in regards to our league, probably the best point guard, probably the best two guard, the best center, even their four-man and Shima, 7 feet tall, can make threes, very, very good. And then Jean Louis is probably the best athlete and defender in our league. So his top 5 is very, very good. And then he's got some nice pieces. They're not overly deep, but he's got some nice pieces off the bench, some guys that can knock down some threes and shoot it pretty good, and some toughness. So they're going to be hard playing. They're going to scrap. They're going to be fearless, and they're going to keep coming after you. I don't really know UConn's team, so I don't know what they have for their playmaking and their ball handling. But regardless, I'm sure Iona's not going to change what their philosophy is.
Take me through when it comes to facing that Iona press that they like to throw out there. Is that something that they'll stick with for the full 40 minutes and really press you down? And then I think the other side that is curious to me, UConn's got some bigger guards. So you look at some of the guards they have, 6'4" and a little bit bigger than that. How do you think that changes the matchup maybe when they're pressing some of these Iona guards that are a little bit undersized compared to those UConn guards?
Yeah, no, I think it's a two-part question. Good question. I mean, they're going to come at you the whole game regardless. But look, there's probably no better in-game coach than Coach Patino. He's going to make the necessary adjustments that he needs to make. Now, he might come at you harder at times. They'll come at you softer at times. But either way, they're going to be picking you up full court. Sometimes he's going to have a 7-foot Shima on the ball, creating havoc. Sometimes he's not going to have anybody on the ball. He's going to be denying, and double teaming the point guard. He'll just change up his pressure through the course of the game, and probably, game planning, scouting report, and then obviously in game, what's working, what's, what kind of, havoc are they creating. And then they just pick their moments. They wait for their right spots, to turn you over. And they might not turn you over for 33 minutes, but they come up with the big turnover with 4 or 5 minutes, whatever it is, 7 minutes to go in the game. So, but the next part of that is, obviously, UConn is a different level than the MAAC and the big guards and the strength, because Iona has big guards, for our league, so they'll match up well, with the higher level team. But I do think it could be, I'm not going to say easier, but obviously to UConn's advantage, being able to hold them off, versus that pressure, you know what I mean? But, still they're still going to have to be tight with their press offense and their pressure entries. And, I think Iona's really good at getting into a rhythm with their pressure. So you have to try to break it with different alignments so they can't get into their rhythm. I don't care what level you are. If you don't have the appropriate mindset to break their pressure, then you're going to have moments where you're not reaching your potential and breaking it, and that's where Iona would thrive.
When you were game planning for this Iona team in the championship, what were some of the keys from your perspective to limiting Iona and giving your team the best chance to win that game?
Yeah, I talked about this in the press conference. It's a simple game plan. Don't turn the ball over. Don't let them score off their defense. Keep them out of transition, and then you'll have a chance to win. But that's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
For my team in particular, we struggled with pressure all year. We didn't really have enough playmaking. We had some strengths to our team, but we didn't have enough playmaking off the dribble. So we knew that could be an issue for us. So we had like 3 or 4 different alignments that we wanted to keep changing up and try to keep Iona a little bit off balance with their pressure. But they're just relentless, man. They just keep coming after you and after you. Really, just with the inbounds pass, they're not running and jumping and doing a lot of things that he's done in the past. Once you get the ball inbounded, it's more just getting the ball in and creating that havoc. And unfortunately, we just had a ton of turnovers. And even with all of those turnovers, I mean, we tied it with 11 minutes to go. With 4 minutes to go, we were down 4 and got the defensive rebound before they stripped us and hit a big 3. But if you handle their pressure, obviously you're going to have a good opportunity to win the game. And I think, obviously, we played really well defensively in our MAAC tournament. We weren't the strongest defensive team throughout the year, but clearly UConn is going to be much better than we were, on the defensive side of the basketball.
I'm going to take a quick break from the interview to tell you about my friends at Martin Rosol's Meats. This 4th-generation Connecticut family business produces kielbasa, hot dogs, sausages, and deli meats using Martin Rosol's very own original recipes. Their products can be found in grocery stores, delis, restaurants, and hot dog stands throughout the state. And if you're looking for your fill right away, check out their retail store in New Britain. For more information, visit martinroselsinc.com and go support a UConn fan-owned business. And now, back to the interview.
What's the biggest vulnerability or weakness in this Iona team that if you're kind of game planning to attack outside of trying to make sure you're not turning the ball over, what can you do to stifle them a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think, and I think Coach Patino would admit this, they don't have a ton of depth. So their top 5 are very, very good. If you can, with their pressure, if you can get them into a little bit of foul trouble, early second half, or, get guys sitting for the remainder of the first half, then that goes to your advantage, because their bench isn't up to the same level, as their top 5. I think they need to stay out of foul trouble.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting from a UConn perspective too, especially when it comes to breaking that press. UConn goes 9 deep and can throw a number of fresh bodies out there when it comes to that press. And as you mentioned, throwing some different alignments out there, I think is interesting. When you when you look at this game plan, if Dan Hurley's sitting there now, who of those 5 guys is he scouting for the most right now? Who's the guy you're really keying in on?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say it's probably the top 3 guys. It's Junior Joseph, for sure, because when things, as good as his guards are at Iona, and they're very, very good. Clayton was player of the year. Jenkins easily could have been first team. Maybe they just didn't have 3, didn't want to put 3 guys on first team. Very talented. And he, both of those guys scored a lot on us. But I think when things get tight for Iona, at times offensively or whatnot, or they're not scoring off their defense, that's when they rely on Junior Joseph. Throw it into him. He's physical in there, can get to both shoulders. But he's also a really good offensive rebounder, put back guy, and that kind of stuff. So I would say Joseph, first and foremost, you need to shut down, but clearly you don't want to let those guards get off. But it's those 3 guys that you have to put all your focus into.
I know you mentioned Osborne Shama, the 7-footer there. What is his game like? Because UConn's got a guy they could throw out there off the bench who's 7'2". They've got Adama Sanogo, who's another big guy who's dominant down in the paint. What does he bring to the court, and how could that matchup possibly play out there?
Yeah, it's funny. They got a 7-foot guy that can make threes, and I'm not even talking about him, right? So he's. I think for him, he's just a guy. He's athletic. He gets to the offensive backboard. You know, he's a force on defense. You know, when he's on the ball on the long side out of bounds, you know, full court pressures, or, you know, obviously the end line pressures, he's hard to inbound against. You know, they'll pressure you just on their short side out of bounds plays in the quarter court and those kinds of things that they frustrate you with and kind of get in your head. But he's a guy that can make threes, you know.
Yeah.
So you got guards that can get into the paint, in particular off ball screens, you know, and then you got Joseph in there, but he's a guy that, you know, he can stretch the court at 7 feet and make a three. So, you know, obviously he's another guy that, you know, you'd like to contain and not give rhythm threes to.
Yeah. How do you compare this Iona team to some of the past couple that Coach Patino has had there at Iona?
Oh boy, that's a really, really good question. I think when he won the tournament, maybe it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, he had the two leftovers from Coach Kluse's team, the two guards. He was very, very reliant on them to score, and then he tried to obviously defend. Joseph was, I guess, just maybe a freshman at the time.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so, you know, I think Joseph is much improved, in better shape, much more consistent, and I think they're a lot better defensively right now, to be honest with you. You know, they know exactly what they're doing. They're much more physical, you know, on the defensive end. They still got the good backcourt, you know, but a little more physical, I would say, you know, on both ends of the floor.
And then I'll wrap with this one. UConn and Iona heading up to play in an arena that Iona is obviously familiar with, playing up in Albany. UConn heading there. What's it like having coached in that arena? Good shooting arena. What are your thoughts on playing up there?
Yeah, I think sometimes in that arena it can get a little chilly, it can get a little cold if it's not packed, but I don't anticipate that, you know, this weekend. I think it's going to be jam packed, and you know, it's a great atmosphere. I think Syracuse, when they won the national championship back in the day, went through Albany. You know, I went up and checked that game out, and it was an unbelievable atmosphere. So you're going to have, you know, especially in their session.
Yeah,
I think it's the night session, right?
They're actually 4:30. They're giving them
they are?
that
Okay,
kind
I
of
wasn't sure,
standalone
but
game there. Yeah.
But either way, you got, you know, bus rides for the fans, and
Yeah.
that makes it good for both, you know, sets of fans. So I anticipate a great atmosphere for them.
Awesome. Well, Coach Dunne, I really appreciate the time. Thanks so much for coming on and giving us a little background into Iona. I appreciate it.
No problem, Jared. Anytime, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me.